Okay, in this video, we're going to look at how to calculate the empirical formula. So remember this rhyme to help you with the steps. Percent to mass, mass to mole, divide by small, multiply till whole. Now the final one, sometimes you won't have to multiply till whole. That's only if you have a half for it. So if we're going through our POGL, our first example says calculate the empirical formula when there is 79.8% of carbon and 20.2% of hydrogen. Now this problem was completed for you already, so you can follow along with your handout. So we'll see that we first have to find our percent. So we find our percent of 79.8% of carbon. So I'm going to set up my carbon and I'm going to set up my hydrogen, which is 20.2%. So we're literally just changing our percent symbol to G. So we're going to have 79.8 G here over 1 and 20.2 G over 1. Then we have to do our mass to mole, so we need to look at our periodic table. So hopefully you have one handy with you. So we're going to do our line X line X line, and then we're going to have our G on the bottom for both. Now, since we're doing a mole conversion, we can put our 1 moles on top. When I look at the periodic table, I'll see that I have 12.01 grams here, and I'll have 1.01 grams here. Now you can round it to whole numbers if you like. If you'd like to always have the same answer as the screen, we're going to always round to 2 decimal places. So when we do 79.8 grams divided by 12.01 grams, we're going to see that the answer we get is going to be 6.64 mole. Now, if you don't write mole there, that's okay for me for that, because we see that G and G cancels out, G and G cancels out, and I'm running out of space, so I'm actually going to leave that off for the mole. And then we'll see that our bottom one's going to be 20.0. So we have now completed step number 2, mass to mole. Now we have to divide by small. So we're going to see that 6.64 is the smaller of the two. So when we divide that, we're going to get 1. And then when we do 20 divided by 6.64, we're going to see that we get 3. Now, we're going to write our final formula. So we look back at the beginning, the 1 represents how many C's. So we'll see we get C just by itself. You don't have to show the 1. And then the H, we're going to have 3. So we're going to have CH3 for our empirical or simplest formula. So now let's take a look at number 2. It says, what is the empirical formula if we have now 25.9% of nitrogen and 74.1% of oxygen. So if we take a look, we're going to have our nitrogen first and our oxygen second. So percent to mass. So we're changing these percent symbols to G's. So we're going to have 25.9 G over 1, and we're going to have 74.1 G over 1. Then step number 2, mass to mole. Line X line, 1 mole on top, 1 mole on top, and our G. Now the great thing about it, it always follows the same process. So now I'm going to use my periodic table to get 14.01 and 16. So now this is where we need our calculator out for it. Now you can use your phone calculator while you're at home, but you'll have to use a proper calculator when we take tests or quizzes. So 25.9 divided by 14.01 we'll see is 1.85. We're going to round to the sig figs of our percent. So that's 3 sig figs in 25.9. So 74.1 divided by 16, we're going to see is 4.63. So we did our step 2, mass to mole. Now we need to divide by small. So we'll see that our smaller one is the top one of 1.85. So 1.85 divided by 1.85 is 1. And now what's 4.63 divided by 1.85? Okay, we see we get 2.5. So we divide it by small. Now we have to multiply till whole. Now in our math rules, if we do it to 1, we have to do it to both. So how do you get out of a 1 over 2 or a half? What's the reciprocal? It's going to be a 2 over 1. So we're going to multiply not only the bottom one by 2 to get 5, we'll multiply the top one to also get 2, and that's how we're going to get our odd numbers in our formula. So we're going to see that we have N2O5. So that one took a little bit more work because you had to do the final step of multiply till whole. Now, example number 3, we're now looking at the empirical formula. If we have 75.7 of tin, it would be a sin to forget tin, and 24.3% of fluorine. So percent to mass first. So we have our 75 for our SN, 0.7 G, and then we have our F, which is going to be 24.3 G here. So step 1 done, mass to mole. So line, X line, X line, and then we need to find our G's for our tin and our fluorine. So I go to the periodic table and I see I have 118.7 and fluorine is 19. Now I'm going to divide those four. So 75.7 divided by 118.7, we'll see we get 0.638. And then on the bottom, 24.3 divided by 19 is 1.28. So we finished step number 2, mass to mole. Now we have to divide by small. So we're going to see that our smaller one is the top one. It doesn't always happen that way, but for our 3 examples, it did. So 0.638 divided by 0.638 is 1, and 1.28 divided by 638 is not going to be 1, it's actually 2. So because we didn't have a half with this, we would see that we just have SNF2, so we divided by small, but we didn't have to multiply to get the whole. So this takes us through our video of going through 3 empirical formula problems, keeping in mind our rhyme: percent to mass, mass to mole, divide by small, and multiply till whole. Thanks for watching.